Welcome back. New photographs this morning of President Trump wearing a mask publicly for the first time yesterday during his visit to Walter Reed Hospital. The president, who met with wounded soldiers and medical workers, told reporters he loves masks in the appropriate locations, but still believes they have a time and place. Joining us right now with reaction is the executive vice president of the Trump Organization, Donald Trump Jr. And Don, it is good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Maria. How are you?
Yeah, great. Interesting to see your dad donning a mask. Obviously, things are serious. You've got the potential of a second spike. How is Kimberly doing? We know that Kimberly has contracted COVID along with a top convention person. Is she okay?
She's 100% fine. She's zero symptoms, zero anything. We're in quarantine, obviously, and I am too because of proximity. But other than that, you really wouldn't know that there's anything even going on. So it's been good. Under the circumstances, it's as good as it can get. And I also saw my father look pretty good in the mask the other day. And I think what people also have to realize when he talks about there being a time and place, anyone who comes into proximity with him is literally tested that day, is literally tested moments before they allow access. So he's obviously going to be much less susceptible to this than anyone else because literally there is a daily screening process if you're going to even be within proximity to him. So I think that's important for people to note. But when he's going to Walter Reed to visit our sick and our wounded soldiers, he's going to take that very seriously.
Yeah, but people are taking seriously the idea that we are seeing a second wave potentially and spikes in some hot spots across the country. What does that mean for the convention, Don? And what about the idea that, look, the Democrats have already said they're going to do a virtual convention. There are polls that have Biden either tied with Trump or actually leading Donald Trump. Your thoughts of all of these worries going into the convention and then, of course, the election?
Well, I think for the Democrats, of course, they want to do a virtual convention because there's no enthusiasm for Joe Biden. He can't get people to show up a rally if he was able to do rallies. So this whole scenario is really, the ultimate best case scenario for Joe Biden and his campaign. They don't want him on the stump. They don't want him speaking to reporters. They don't want him ad-libbed. Honestly, they don't even want him on a teleprompter because he can't even get that right. So for them, it's sort of the ultimate. I mean, I think with our convention, there's a lot of people that want to do it. They want to be enthusiastic, but we can do that and we can do it safely. We can take the necessary precautions. We can protect the people that are going to be there. We can implement things that you wouldn't necessarily normally implement at a convention to do so. So they're going to take it very seriously. We're going to do a great job with it, and it's going to be an awesome event.
What does the president need to get these numbers up? Are you buying these polls? It looks like one after the next. It's a real tight race, and in many cases, Biden is leading the president.
Well, listen, I think when you have the media onslaught, where media has just totally abdicated their position to objectively look at both sides, they're not looking into any of Biden's past. They're not looking into any of his history. They're not looking into his family's graph. They're not looking to how insanely soft he's been on China throughout his entire career. And let's not forget, this is a 50-year career in Washington, D.C. They're trying to run him like he's a moderate outsider. This guy is the epitome of the swamp. So they want to do whatever they can to keep the American people from actually seeing Biden. He hasn't been defied, and the media is trying to make sure that no one gets to define Joe Biden, because once he is, you'll see how terrible this notion could be for America.
Which is why you're out with a upcoming book, Liberal Privilege. You're going to talk a lot about Biden in that book, right? You're self-publishing a book. When is it coming out?
100%. I guess one of the offshoots, one of the only positive things of quarantine, for the last few months was I had a lot of free time, and I was looking into it and actually went on and hired a researcher just to do it myself, because I said, if the media is going to totally neglect this guy, this history, these terrible trade deals, especially now in the post-COVID-19 world where we're going to actually have to deal with China and deal tough with China, which is what Donald Trump's, that's his wheelhouse. That's his forte. He's the only guy to do it in modern American history. That Joe Biden can sell this notion of, well, now we're going to be buy American after 50 years of legislation that sent our jobs, that sent our American dream to China. It's asinine. But I'm sitting there looking, whether it's Hunter Biden, whether it's Joe's brother, whether it's the sister, the entire family has enriched themselves off of Joe Biden's publicly funded office. He won't release his documents from 30-something years in the Senate that are sitting at the University of Delaware. These aren't like private notes that he had as a citizen. This is while he was a senator. in the United States, paid for by the American taxpayer, and somehow that's magically off limits? Brett Kavanaugh's high school yearbook was not off limits, according to Democrats.
Yeah.
His high school yearbook. But Joe Biden's Senate papers, no, we can't touch this. So it's about hypocrisy. It's about the double standard. And, I called it liberal privilege because we hear a lot about privilege these days, but liberal privilege is the ultimate because they can say one thing, do the other, and never get called on it.
Well, look, in the meantime, the critics of your father continue stepping it up. Just in the last 2 weeks, you had the mayor of New York actually painting Black Lives Matter mural right outside of Trump Tower and Fifth Avenue in New York City. This is where you work every day, right? Do you pass this new mural here? Here's the shots of the mayor actually painting it right outside of Trump Tower. Your reaction?
Well, listen, it'd be nice if the mayor actually did something to help the people of his city. He's busy there playing arts and crafts, but what has he actually done other than oversee the destruction of New York City? The guy's, it's literally gross incompetence, but he'll go there for a photo op. What happened to the $1 billion, almost $1 billion that were literally just lost on him and his wife's pet projects in New York City? Now he wants to defund the police, take $1 billion out of New York City's police department's budget. What do you think's going to happen with that? You see police officers retiring in droves. You want to stop senseless killings like George Floyd? Guess what? The answer is not driving experienced, dedicated, loyal police officers into early retirement and filling that void with inexperienced people who may not have qualified otherwise, but are only getting the job because you need someone there. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. It's gross negligence, and honestly, it's worse. It's just sheer incompetence. But again, he can play arts and crafts for the photo op, and it's as though all of the things and all of his failures are totally forgotten. But the media will give him that benefit of the doubt.
It's going to keep going, and in fact, de Blasio, Hillary Clinton, they all want mail-in voting. I want to talk to you about that because there was a city councilman among 4 people facing voter fraud charges in New Jersey. We've got umpteen stories of this deluge in mail-in ballots forcing election officials in New York, Pennsylvania, Kentucky to take 2 times as long to count votes in primary elections. How much of this election is going to be mail-in voting, do you think, Don?
Well, the Democrats would like it all to be mail-in voting. You've seen that. How often have Republicans won after the fact when people show up? Oh, look, magically, I found a bucket of ballots all in my car. They're all Democrats, 4 days later. It's truly disgusting. Over the weekend, we saw a cat that has been dead for 12 years, since the end of the Bush administration, got a voter registration form in his home in Atlanta.
Oh, my
goodness. This is what's going on. A mail clerk, someone who worked for the U.S. Postal Service, pleaded guilty over the weekend for altering ballots. You think the Democrats aren't going to take full advantage of this? They're running around bragging that they were able to manipulate Trump rallies on TikTok, but they're not going to take advantage of mail-in voting. Democrats have even said it's terrible, but
this
now
is really serious stuff going into the election. You're right. All right, real quick, final question here, Don. Will you run for the mayor of New York?
Now, my only focus right now is making sure that my father wins in 2020. I see the policies that he's done. I see the economic results. We've seen it in the job numbers. Donald Trump did the impossible. Donald Trump accomplished the holy grail of American politics, raising the job numbers for people, raising the minimum wages for the lowest income earners, watching their wages go up for the first time in modern history. Donald Trump did it all before. He's the guy that can do it again. Clearly not swamp creature Joe Biden, who has an accomplishment record that is non-existent in 50 years in Washington, D.C.
So maybe you consider it after the president wins then. Mayor of New York.
I don't know.
Trump
That's
Jr.
not really my kind of job, but who knows?
All right. Good to see you, Don. Thanks very much for being here.